Yes, welcome into the camp. Badgers back on the field Tuesday morning. A little bit cooler than before, Jesse. Probably the coolest by far of any of the practices so far.
Maybe the coolest preseason camp I can ever remember. It was in the 60s. It was raining. It felt like it was an October game, but we could use the break. Everybody could. It was smoking hot out there on the field out in Platteville the first week.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. It was nice. There was a nice breeze. It was a little bit cooler. It was a little bit cooler. But we're back to talk about what happened in practice. We'll talk about another nice day for Tyler Van Dyke. We'll talk about another a good day from the outside linebackers, especially some of the young guys, or one of the young guys, I should say. And we'll get into the running backs as well, because we had a chance to talk with some of the running backs along with running backs coach Devin Spalding after practice. Before we get there, Home Field is back. They are the official apparel sponsor of the camp. They are absolutely the best when it comes to that vintage gear that you're looking for in college. And they're back in a big way with their Can't Miss Kickoff 2024 campaign. And that includes these platinum football boxes that are coming out this week. They've got 3 never-before-seen Badgers items. They've been unveiling these designs this week. They did I think like 30 schools yesterday, 30 schools today, and they're going to be doing 30 schools on Wednesday or whatever the number is. And the Badgers are going to be part of that. So you're going to be able to see these designs tomorrow, and they go on sale coming up on Friday. And they believe they're going to sell out. So you can get 15% off your purchase by using the promo code Bucky24, and you can find more information up on homefield.com. All right, let's get to practice. And let's start with Tyler Van Dyke again, Jesse, because I think for the second straight day, he was the better quarterback in this battle for the starting job. Not to say that Braden Locke was bad, but I continue to see things from Tyler Van Dyke that say, I'm at practice, and Phil Longo said anybody who's at practice should be able to know which way the thing is going. I won't have to make a decision. Those are Phil Longo's words, and being at practice and watching practice, it feels like it's heading that direction. And I don't know if you'll disagree with me. We were in the same room watching it, so I don't think you will. But I feel like we're all heading in the same direction here.
Yeah, coaches are still rotating both Tyler Van Dyke and Braden Locke with the 1s and 2s. And at some point here, it's going to stop being that way. But to me, it feels like there's starting to be some separation between the two guys. And it's really just little things. I think Tyler gives Wisconsin a better opportunity in the RPO game. We've mentioned the arm strength that he has and also the accuracy. But one play in particular stands out today. I've said this repeatedly. It feels as though each practice he gets a big run. He makes a big throw that makes you realize why they went and got him and kept the ball in an RPO action, got a nice block, and probably would have been a 60-plus yard touchdown run. He didn't have to finish it. It wasn't a full-on, move the ball type situation, and you probably don't want your quarterback running 70 yards anyway when you got to go snap the ball again 20 seconds later. But it was one of those instances where you realize what he can give this offense. And I think obviously he's physical. Luke Fickell has talked about the fact that he is a little more quick now than he was the last couple of years, really starting to look more like the player that he was in 2021 when he was ACC Rookie of the Year. And that's certainly good news for Wisconsin. Don't know that those are the numbers that we're going to see this season, but it seems like things are trending in the right direction for him at a really good time.
It definitely does. And I don't know. He's definitely quicker than he was in the spring, and certainly than when you put on the film of the last couple of years. But the accuracy that he had today too really stood out, and he hasn't put the ball in trouble. Like, you go back to the spring, that was a huge thing, I think, for both him and Braden Locke, putting the ball in trouble at times early in spring, and then it kind of phased out towards the end of spring when he kind of took his next step. We haven't seen that very much at all in these 7 practices. The ball has not been in trouble at all.
Nope, he's able to deliver it in the right spot. I mentioned this the other day, but just the way that Nizer Forkurian is talking about how hard it is to try and defend him when you feel like you're playing the best that you can, and Tyler just drops it into the only place where the wide receiver can get it. I think we've seen that on numerous occasions, instances where there are 2 defenders and he just splits them and gives the wide receiver the pass where it needs to be. And it just feels like these last couple of practices, you can see that comfort level. The offense is starting to hum a little bit more. And some of this is skeleton type situations. So
some is, but not all.
Not all of it. And even those 11 on 11s, it can be tough to discern was he flushed from the pocket and he escaped that pressure? But I do feel like we're seeing more out of Tyler, and certainly the staff is going to have to decide in the next week or so who's going with the ones consistently, who's going with the twos consistently. So that is still a process that's ongoing.
It is ongoing. It is ongoing. We'll see if they decide to maybe give Tyler some more first team reps, and maybe we'll see a break before. But my guess is they're going to keep on doing this way until they get back to Madison. Like, I don't know that they're going to make a huge change before they get back to Madison. Their final practice in Platteville is on Sunday night. It's a big scrimmage or a long scrimmage. So we will get to see practice on Wednesday, then the open practice on Saturday, and then they practice on Sunday. There's 2 days there where they may be doing stuff that we will not get to see down in Platteville. But I feel like maybe once we get back to those practices at Camp Randall, that there will be a clear, this guy's 1 and this guy's 2.
I would think so as well.
All right, sweet. I wanted to go across to the defense because we've talked so much about the offense, and we'll get back to it when we talk about the running backs. But I thought that there were several guys defensively that stood out, and especially the pass rushers. I don't know that we've talked a ton about Leon Lowry and John Pius and Anello Lefele or Daryl Peterson, for that matter, in this camp. I know we talked a little bit about Thomas Heiberger and obviously Aaron Witt still dealing with an injury that has him having to watch from the sideline, but today, especially Anelu, I mean, bunch of plays around the ball. And he dropped Cade Giacomelli for a big loss. He had a sack of Tyler Van Dyke, or would-be sack of Tyler Van Dyke. But then you know, John Pius had a strip from the backside against the first team offense. You had Leon Lowry with a sack. And I'm just talking about the outside linebackers at this point. I can go to the defensive line. There were a couple guys that stood out there too, but the outside linebackers, I don't know. We've talked about a ton about them here this first week.
I think all of these are good news, bad news situations where if you were talking about the outside linebackers dominating, it meant that the offensive line was struggling. And I think it was an encouraging sign that for the most part in week 1, you didn't see a bunch of plays being blown up by sacks, because I think it highlights that the offensive line has made progress. I know there are a lot of fans that certainly wonder about how well these offensive tackles can hold up, especially after the spring when we were heaping considerable praise on the outside linebackers, and understandably so. But today was a good day for the playmakers and showed what they have, not only now, but also in the pipeline. I think we have a pretty good feeling for what Peterson, Pius, and Lowry can provide. Now, fans haven't had a chance to see those 2 transfers come in, but Lowry's got a lot of power. Pius has a nice mix, and he did get in and got behind the play and came from behind and knocked the ball loose from Braden Locke. Lefele is someone we have not really spent a ton of time talking about, but was one of those 2 early enrollees at the position along with Thomas Heiberger. This was his best day that I've seen this preseason, maybe his best day overall. He had some good days later in spring, but got a lot more of the second team reps with guys in that group a little bit banged up, and I had him for 2 sacks, would-be sacks, 1 on Tyler, another one on Braden. And then you mentioned the stuff of Giacomelli. He had 2 stops at the line of scrimmage within a 3-play sequence in 11 on 11. So I think that, to me, speaks to a larger overarching theme in my mind, which I know we'll probably get to when we talk about some of the young running backs, but just in general, the talent level that they have with some of these younger guys who are getting opportunities to show what they can do, not just on the third team, but in the second team, and sometimes in some instances, the first team. There's a lot of depth there. Even if you're not necessarily going to see him or some of these other freshmen on the field for considerable action this season, I do think it bodes well for the future and shows what the staff has been able to do to try to build depth and talent at a lot of different positions. Yeah.
I mean, if I had to put you on the spot, do you think we see Lefele on defense this year?
I do not think so. It comes down to injuries. Obviously, I think we're going to see those top 3 a lot. If Aaron Witt can stay healthy, he gives them something a little bit different. He's very physical, especially in the run game. And I also wouldn't be surprised if there's a situation where Thomas Heiberger can help them. Now, the other thing here that makes it challenging to predict the young guys is because they have so much talent at inside linebacker that you're going to be some situations where they can use them in an outside linebacker type of role. And you've got 3 of those inside linebackers on the field. So I would not expect to see him defensively for a bunch of snaps. But of course, there's the 4-game rule now where they can get some reps and you can determine, well, are they doing enough to get more?
And there was an interesting development here these last couple of days with Ernest Willer the freshman defensive lineman has now been working with the outside linebackers, and at least was today. And what do you think what do you think that says? I mean, I think that's tough. Certainly, he's a big body for an outside linebacker, but he does have some nice athleticism for his size.
I think part of it certainly is making sure you've got the bodies necessary through the top three lines. But to me, if anything, it highlights the versatility and athleticism that he has. How many guys come in as a defensive lineman, especially true freshmen, and then you're asking them to step out and do something a little bit different where maybe you can be stand-up guy on the edge, certainly put your hand down. And look, there's a reason why he was so highly coveted, and it was such a big win for the Badgers to have. But he's another one of those guys to me that stands out when, especially if you're looking at this 2024 recruiting class. You could obviously go on down the list of guys where you're just kind of eager to see what they can do out there.
Yeah. So a couple of defensive linemen, as I said, stood out as well. Ben Barton, who is kind of not the forgotten member of those top three in terms of guys that have experience, but certainly we've talked a lot about Kurt Neal. We've talked a lot about James Thompson Jr. He has kind of not been, but he had a couple of really nice pass breakups within a couple play, like 3 or 4 plays. Wasn't it about that? And then Brandon Lane continues to be a problem in the backfield, especially, and he's working mostly with the twos. So it's not like he's gotten a ton of first-team reps or has been going against the first-team offensive line, but he had a couple of really, really impressive plays, broke through for a sack, broke through 2 guys, Emerson Mandel and Colin Coverly for a sack, and then also had a sack against Tyler Van Dyke as well, got back there against Tyler Van Dyke. So both those guys I thought had really nice practices today.
Yeah, Barton's been really active to me through this first week of the preseason, and obviously going to have a big role. They put him out there with the top unit, especially when they've got the 3 down linemen there, but they can rotate. And Brandon Lane definitely emerging as someone who's going to be a part of the rotation. I think we kind of noticed that the first couple days, just his playmaking ability. They need that desperately. And it still feels to me like the top 6 are going to be the veteran guys that they have, even though I really like some of those younger defensive linemen. But Lane needs to be that guy where you see him flash every once in a while, not just in practice, but obviously in games. So James Thompson Jr. can have some support because, yes, Kurt Neal started in the bowl game. He has played some, but he's someone we need to see more from. The same with Barton, the same with Lane. And maybe you could make the case you obviously want to see more from James Thompson Jr., but at the very least, you sort of know what you have there because he has put it on film for a full season a year ago.
I mean, he's the most proven one of that group for sure. And he was, we go back and talk about creating chaos. He was able to do that early in the season. And I'm specifically thinking about the Washington State game for him. But yeah, the defensive line I thought had a solid day today, especially those 2 guys. One note about special teams, we got a Nathaniel Vakos bomb today. They have not been kicking. They've been kicking, but they haven't been kicking deep kicks. And I know that was a big talking point last year. Like you're punting from here, or, you're going for it from here. Why not try the field goal? I think that happened in Indiana. And I know Nathaniel Vakos was dealing with a bit of an injury last year. Today, they let him set up from 52 yards, and he banged it home.
I think this was a big one, and you don't get a lot of opportunities during practice as a kicker. Oftentimes we'll see early in practice, if they do have a field goal kicking session, maybe he gets 4 or 5 field goals, and then you have a backup kick 2 and a third guy kick 2, and sometimes it can differ a little bit. You may not see him again during the practice. So for the staff to make sure that there was an opportunity there during an 11-on-11 session, if you only get one, you got to take advantage of it. And he certainly did that with some room to spare. And he's been capable of doing this. Like I said, he did it at Ohio, but you just want to be able to go into a season confident. And certainly him being healthy helps a bunch.
It does. It definitely does. And there's no competition there. It was good to see him hit a long one, because I don't know that he's been given a ton of opportunities to do that in practice that we've seen, certainly during fall camp. Unless, again, I'm usually down on the field when they're kicking field goals, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. Have they been kicking him from deep?
The longest that I think I can recall is 48, which he made several from 47. I think the other day he missed one from 47 off the upright, but he had taken one from 47 on the previous kick and made it. But that's as long as I have in my notes was 48. And today he obviously buried the 52-yarder.
So that was practice itself. They also did some blitz pickup stuff, and if you're interested in if you're interested in seeing some of that, have video up on the camp YouTube page of all these one-on-ones, and I just need to make special mention of it because you don't normally see it, but Grover Bortolotti in a one-on-one Tackett Curtis, he held up against Tackett Curtis, and then he sent Tackett Curtis flying, and it's just a remarkable video for a guy who obviously a few years ago was kind of like he got in down at Rutgers because he was the backup long snapper. He got to go to Rutgers as the backup walk on. He ended up getting to play a bunch of minutes or a bunch of snaps and carries because they beat the heck out of Rutgers that day. But if you have time to go and look at it, it's impressive. Those one-on-ones are always fun. I don't know how realistic it is because you're just by yourself and there's nothing else going on around you and all that good stuff. You know exactly what's happening, but those are always fun to watch. All right, let's get to the running backs because we got a chance to talk with three of them plus Coach Devin Spalding. We did not get to talk to, as is usually the case with the young guys. We didn't get to talk to the freshmen that so many people are so excited about, and Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree. However, I know you're going to be writing about them anyways. What are some of the other guys saying about those two and the excitement around them? Because I think it has to be tough for a guy like a Ches Malusi or, a Tyree Walker or maybe even a Jackson Aker to see those guys come in and all the excitement around them while knowing that they're still going to be the guys, at least to start the season.
My sense is it isn't necessarily tough for the Ches Malusis and the Tawee Walkers because if healthy, those guys are going to play a bunch and then they're out of here. They got 1 year left. But if you've got more years, you may be starting to wonder what's going to happen because those guys obviously have a bright future ahead of them. But I think everybody who has seen them understands the special qualities that they possess, including the players. And they expressed excitement about what's possible for them when I was asking Tawee Walker about both of them. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw those guys play this season. And there is a difference in each of those guys' games, which Walker and some other guys highlighted as well. Dupree can do it all. He obviously is a running back, but he can be a wide receiver. I was really impressed with one play specifically from practice today. They lined him up. They split him out wide into the slot, and he caught a pass and then turned upfield and turned it into a first down because that's what he can do when you get him into open space. We've talked about his ability as a jump cutter to kind of split defenders and the way that he can turn a negative play into positive yardage when a lot of other guys wouldn't be able to do that. And Dylan Jones has some of those characteristics, but he is, I think, more of the power guy between the two of them. He's got that one cut and go type of ability. And we saw that the other day when he had a really long run that went 70 plus inside the 10-yard line. He had a couple other nice runs today. If you give him even a small hole, he's slippery enough and powerful enough to be able to get through it, get to that next level, and then create trouble because he's got a head of steam. So they're a little bit different. And the other thing that's worth noting, I think they're both pretty good as true freshmen in terms of pass protection ability. And I went back and looked at an interview that I did with Dylan Jones's high school coach from this offseason. And he was talking about that was one thing that he felt separated him was in pass protection. He is a willing blocker. He is unafraid to go against anybody. And I think he's shown that to some degree here this first week. So we've talked a lot about them. And I think I also want to say that it comes with the caveat of they still have Ches Malusi and Tawee Walker, and that makes it difficult to try and figure out what are they going to do with these guys, because Walker has been the best and most consistent running back this camp, and to me, without a doubt, is going to get a bunch of carries and may even end up being the starting running back based on how he's playing and how healthy Ches Malusi is. I know at this point it is more precautionary. They know what they have in him, but those two guys, if they have proven that they can contribute, I think the staff will figure out a way to get one or both of them on the field. And Luke has talked about that since signing day, that he felt like a young running back was going to need to come in and contribute. That was obviously before Walker arrived via the portal, but I think still it's a distinct possibility.
You mentioned Dylan Jones in the pass protection and the willingness to it. I've seen the same thing from Darian Dupree as well. Like, he's willing to stick his nose in there and he's not going to bat an eye about it. So you don't normally see that out of freshmen, especially maybe it's not just the idea, but the technique is there too. Because it's not just about having the mindset to being willing to take on a charging 240-pound guy, that's sprinting at you, that wants to kill the guy behind you. But there's technique to it, and it feels like both of them have some experience in it for sure. The question for you, though, as you do this, you're going to be writing about them for Wednesday, I assume, correct?
Yes.
I'm sure you're not going to answer this question in your article, but it is a question that I asked you when we were sitting up there in the press box today. After 7 practices, 7, who do you think is going to have a better career at Wisconsin, Derry Dupree or Dylan Jones?
I can't believe you're putting me on the spot.
I told you I was going to put you on the spot.
I thought it was a joke. That's really hard. I think both of them are going to play and contribute. I think Dupree's versatility makes him a candidate to be able to impact the team in more ways. Again, how many running backs who come in, they're a true running back, but yet they fit into this system so well because they can do all the other things that you need them to do. Now, the biggest key here is, can they learn the playbook? And Ches talked about that. This is not an easy thing. It's not an easy playbook to learn for a freshman coming in. But Luke was asked about that on Saturday after practice, and he said he felt like that there had been a really good transition for both of those players. But today was a day where Dylan Jones got more of the reps with the twos. So some of this is just like we're talking about with the quarterback situation. I think it's also at a lot of other positions. One day, one guy may get more reps with the twos. But I think that's noteworthy. The last couple days, it feels like Jones has really come on strong, but both of them have had their moments. So that's a rambling answer to say, hard to say. You're making me pick. I'll pick Dupree, but man, Jones is just an absolute load too. I don't know how you could have done better, to be honest, in just running back recruiting in general. And I go back to, and this is in the story as well, like the biggest priority that Luke had when he met with his staff at the start of all this for the 2024 class was running back. We got to get better at running back, have more depth. That was his message. And they went and they signed 3 guys, 2 of whom are 4-star prospects, top 30 in the country. That just does not happen very often.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Do you want to do a few more of these? I got a few more of these.
I don't know if I can filibuster long enough.
It's not even, yeah, just make a call.
It's such an impossible question to answer because they both have had really good moments. And you also don't see that very often this early from a true freshman. Even the Jonathan Taylor situation, we barely saw him the first couple of weeks. Now the circumstances are a little bit different. There were, I think, 4 or 5 running backs ahead of him at the time. And then there were some injuries, and clearly his talent began to emerge. But I think that feels special that you can see those guys making those moves this early in camp.
Yeah, practice was closed by the time Jonathan Taylor was doing what he did in that Friday night scrimmage. We didn't get to see that, obviously, but Big Ten Network was there, and it was Big Ten Network. I think it was there. Someone was there. They saw it. A lot of people saw it, and they knew pretty quickly. It's very possible that one of these 2 guys could do the same, but we know a lot more about them now than we did Jonathan Taylor in 2017. I'll say that for sure. And because JT was not as highly regarded coming in as these 2 guys were, right? And the whole college football and just in what we know about guys is just even, it's only been 7 years, and yet we still know just so much more about these guys when they get here than we used to.
In the pantheon of things you hear during someone's initial snaps in college, Jonathan Taylor lacking top-end speed as a high school junior ranks right up there.
Yeah. I'm going to go down and say Taiwan Deal is was a very good guy and was a good running back, but his injuries also launched the career of 2 players. He got hurt in 2014, which led to Dario Gumboale moving over to the offensive side of the ball and him eventually turning into an NFL running back. And Jonathan Taylor, he got hurt in 2017. Taiwan Deal got hurt in 2017. That allowed Jonathan Taylor to move up. Now, again, obviously Jonathan Taylor's talent would have obviously stood out at some point, right? But it allowed him to stand out even quicker and be in those situations. I don't know if Dari ever ends up on offense if Taiwan Deal doesn't get hurt. Probably not. But I do give Deal props for being an excellent fisherman. So he'll have that going for him long after the football career is over. That's what I'm saying. That I don't want. He seems like too nice of a guy to just sit there and say like he launched the career of two other guys, but unfortunate injuries for him launched the career of two other guys into what they were at Wisconsin and eventually what they became and have become in the NFL. That's just what I'm saying. Before we move on, Anello Lafelle or Thomas Heiberger, who you got career-wise for the? No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that one.
Do I have to do this? I really like what I've seen from Heiberger so far, but whenever Lafelle gets in there with the twos, it feels like he's making plays.
Grant Steck or Robert Booker?
Oh man, Steck is more physically ready. Guy comes in at, was he 260 and he dropped like 5 pounds on the roster right now? Yeah, stop making me do this. It's too hard.
Emerson Mandel or Kevin Haywood?
You're gonna keep the receipts.
I'm not going to keep anything.
Man, I don't know. I mean, Haywood got a better head start, but maybe Mandel gets yelled at less. I don't know.
Let's see. I think I'll stop with that. I'll stop with those. You feel uncomfortable. It feels a little uncomfortable for you. Right
I don't know how to answer it. It's like I've seen him like for 15 reps. It feels like.
I know it's amazing. That's why we're just making a split-second decisions here. You get 7 practices, and you have to decide how the rest of their career is going to go. But you did a fantastic job with it. You did. Let's talk about the other running backs. Chaz Malusi has not been taking part in team drills. Hasn't been taking part in. Very much of the Skelly drills either. He's been doing some individual stuff, but any concern on your part? I know that he said he wasn't concerned. I know that Devin Spalding said he wasn't concerned. They're holding, just trying to make sure he's all good. But any concerns on your part?
I think there always has to be concern when you're talking about Chez Mellusi and any kind of injuries or any holding out. And I asked him specifically kind of what was going on, and he mentioned some cramping of some sort, and they want to be smart, and that all makes sense. It all checks out. It's just that when you have his history of he's been at Wisconsin for 3 years, he's been injured in each of those seasons. 2 of them were of the season-ending variety, and he said in the spring he doesn't think he's injury prone. It's been crappy luck, whatever you want to call it. Those things start to add up and create the story of who you are as a player at Wisconsin, whether that's fair or not. So, there's got to be at least some level of concern when your supposed top guy is not in there for the reps. On the other hand, it is a legitimate thing to say, well, he's been here. We know what we have in him. We just got to get him healthy to the season opener. It's given opportunities to a lot of other guys, made Tawee Walker look like someone who's capable of being a starter, but he's just got to get through that first game, that first month, and really just get through a full season healthy. And right now there's a lot to prove for him.
Well, I'm wondering how long they hold him out. It's not like he's rehabbing during practice. Like we see the guys that are hurt and rehabbing during practice. He's not a part of that group. He's back with the running backs watching practice. So it's not like he's like working towards anything. And that hasn't always been the case. There are times where he has done stuff off to the side, but when I just feels like, and I know you guys disagreed when I said this, just feels like they're trying to get him to week 1. Whereas maybe instead of like trying to get him on the field, the only problem is he missed that last half of last year, but he's played a ton of football in his career. You're trying to balance the two, right? Do you think he needs time on the field to get comfortable and just get back on the bike, or do you just want to make sure that he's healthy come Western Michigan? Like I think it's a delicate balance that they're working through.
Well, so in the spring, he mentioned he felt he was 85 to 90% back from what he was before he suffered the season-ending injury in week 4 against Purdue. And so I asked him today, where does he feel like he is? And he answered like he has no question about it. He's 100%. He feels like he's back to that guy. And that's you've got to take a guy at his word at this point who's been in the program or played college football for this long. And he also said he doesn't expect this to be some kind of long-term thing, that he'll be back in the next week or 2, because I was also saying, how long do you feel like you need to be able to ramp up? And he had no questions whatsoever about that he would be back. Now, if he did, I don't know whether he would share it with us, but it does feel very much like a precautionary thing. It's just that when you look at the history, you start to wonder and you want to make sure that he's healthy enough to go.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for him. Tui Walker, though, certainly feels like a guy that is ready to be the main ball carrier if called upon. Mindset wise, like it's something like he's been waiting for. You know what I mean? Like he took a little bit of a wayward route to get to Wisconsin, and he has one opportunity to kind of make his mark. And he feels, it seems, in talking to him, it seems like he's ready for that opportunity if it's going to come.
It makes you wonder how he was overlooked for so long. I don't know that he had any offers out of high school. He went to Pomona Junior College and then spent 2 years at Oklahoma as a backup who was a walk-on and obviously did enough to earn a scholarship at Wisconsin. But man, he looks so quick, so decisive, so powerful. And I think Ricardo Hallman described him as a bowling ball of sorts, and Hallman would know because he had his helmet blasted off on the left side of the field the other day, which I'm sure he was thrilled that was shared by Wisconsin's account on social media. But you got to pick the best plays from practices, and that was certainly one of them. So, it's Walker has exceeded my expectations because I just didn't know when they got him. My first question was, why are they doing this?
That was all of our question. I still remember, like, why?
Yeah, it was in December. It was out at the bowl game. I remember him committing, and I was like, well, what is this about? You've got Ches Malusi coming back. You've got a couple guys with some experience, and you're bringing these 3 freshmen in. Is this because you just need help in case Ches gets hurt, or it's a stopgap until the Darian Dupree, Dylan Jones combination comes to fruition? And no, it's obviously they saw something in him and he took advantage of it. You started to notice that in the spring, and he's picked up where he left off.
Yeah, he told a story today about like how he ended up at Oklahoma and doing that route. Is Ramondre Stevenson was a family friend. For those, he's now with the New England Patriots, but he took the same route where he went to junior college and then he went to Oklahoma, and he ended up being he's a pretty good running back with New England now. And so he's like, that's a good spot for you, and that's what you should do. He's never got the chance to be, and we talked about it the other day, the guy at Oklahoma. And that was for a variety of reasons, I assume. I don't know those reasons, other than that they apparently like some other guys more. He felt he should have been given more opportunities, and now he's going to be at a spot where he may certainly have plenty of opportunities. The other guy that talked today, though, that was Jackson Aker. I don't know if you had a chance to speak with him, but he, as we mentioned from the scrimmage the other day, certainly has opened some eyes, and he has also been taking advantage of extra opportunities that may have not been there if Ches was actually practicing.
Right. They've got to figure out what to do with him as well. This is a really intriguing challenge in my mind. If you feel like you don't know where you go with your number 3 spot, do you go with someone who is durable and reliable? Do you go with a young guy that you feel like might have more explosiveness? Aker has taken advantage of those opportunities, and he has the versatility because he has that fullback background. Obviously, he's going to say and do all the right things. He wants to get on the field and contribute in any way he can. I mentioned before that maybe if there's a 2-back set, he can be the lead blocker. He certainly has a history with that, even if they're getting to it in a different way. But he can carry the ball. He can catch passes out of the backfield. So even Luke isn't sure what his role is going to be. And I asked Luke about that on Saturday. They've got to determine that here in the next couple of weeks. But he's put himself in a good position. It's just you've got to ask yourself as a staff, what is it you're looking for? What do you need to get out of that position?
All right, let's close with the Freaks List. The annual Freaks List from your colleague at The Athletic, Bruce Feldman, came out today. Wisconsin has one representative on it. It is Will Pauling, which should not be a surprise. If you were with us when Brady Collins came on the camp before, I think it was in July, and we asked him about some of the guys who were freaks on that roster, and Will Pauling was one of the first names. And ask anybody, I actually asked Jake Chaney down at Big Ten Media Days about it as well, and his name was also as a guy who would have been, or I should say was under consideration for the Freaks List. The 101 guys, Wisconsin got one of them. You would not have guessed Will Pauling had you not seen the list?
I don't know who I would have guessed. Maybe I would have overlooked it, but I mean, the numbers are all there. He runs a 4.39 second 40-yard dash. Was it squatting 600 plus?
Squatting 600.
That is absolutely absurd, especially for
his size, yeah,
wide receiver. So it all makes sense. Look, I can't have qualms with the Freaks List. There's a lot of FBS players. There's a lot of crazy numbers. I'm used to seeing multiple Wisconsin guys on there, but it's a hit every year. I know that. And Will Pauling deservedly on the list.
So I have a question for you, and you can back off if you and say I don't want to answer it. But when Brady was on, I believe he asked something of you. Do you remember what he asked of you?
I think he wanted to know if he could talk to Bruce and try and get more guys on the list.
I believe he asked you to make sure that Bruce reached out to him about the guys to get more guys on the list. Now, again, you're not under the obligation to do anything, but just wondering if you're able to do that or not.
I feel like it was more rhetorical, you know.
No, it's I'm joking. I'm joking, of course. The way that those numbers read out on the actual article makes it seem like he did talk to Brady, because who else has all those numbers? So I think he probably did. But yeah, Will Pauling is a freak athletically. Wisconsin has a lot of those guys, but that list is just insane sometimes when you see some of the videos that those guys have from weight rooms or otherwise. And Wisconsin's had guys in the past. Leo Chanel obviously stands out as one of them, but Will Pauling, the lone freak on Bruce Feldman's list. All right, Wisconsin going to be back on the field on Wednesday morning. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon to break it all down. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Camp.